Into the Storm podcast.
By the power of a human spirit, no matter what you're facing, we have just one way into the storm, 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 into the storm.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Into the Storm podcast. My name is Ken. I'm the founder of the Bison Tribe and the host of the Into the Storm podcast. Today, we got my man Mike Sibert here. How's it going, brother?
Good.
Man, Mike is a best chef I've ever been around. I mean, he's better than Burger King, brother.
Come on, man.
Nah, he's legit, man. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I'm originally from Greenwood, South Carolina. It's about an hour and some change, depending on which way you go from here. Cooking has always been my thing, so I fell in love with food at a very young age. My grandmother helped me out a lot with that, and I just decided to, have a profession in it and like take it to the next level.
Yeah, man. Well, I met you through a mastermind that we're part of, and I'll be honest with you. When somebody said, "Well, this guy's Chef Mike," and they kept saying Chef Mike, and I'm thinking, dude, like all the high end chefs I've been around, and I've not been around many, so let's go ahead and prelude it with that. But like, if you catch a glimpse, if you're in a nice restaurant, you know what I mean, like, and you catch a glimpse of the chef, man, it's normally like a 40-plus-year-old white dude, some like Italian looking dude or something. And then when you came in, I was like, a chef, like.
That's right.
So I immediately start thinking this can be barbecue or something. Like, I ain't trying to be racist
No,
or nothing, but
it
like
is what
that's
it is.
it is
Yeah.
what it is, man. But I also know that's where you get the best barbecue, man. So I was like, either way, this can work out, brother.
Yeah.
And then, man, when I tasted your food, bro, it's like, man, this is like crazy.
Yeah.
And so we were blessed enough for you to come to a retreat, and just like you just made like a little basic chicken thing, bro. I was like, okay, well, this don't look chefy, right? But
right.
high end. But you was cooking for 30 dudes in a
Right.
cabin, right? And it was still like the best chicken I've ever had, bro. Like just throw it together.
Technique, man. Technique.
Man, that's crazy. So you said your grandmother kind of got you started into it, but obviously this is a passion,
Yeah.
like over the top passion.
Yeah.
Man, where do you get that drive from?
Family. I just saw a lot of. First off, let's start with like I don't think my grandfather got the recognition that he deserved for all the work that he put in. My grandfather put in a lot of work, and I watched him a lot growing up. Basically, to put it in perspective, he was basically the help, and I would catch him outside. The guys would bring in a deer. He's skinning a deer, cooking a deer. Pigs. He's smoking a pig. He was famous for his hash. So every time the guys went hunting or whatever, they bringing back everything. When I say everything, they bring back everything. So possum, squirrel, raccoon, all that. My granddad gonna cook it up. So I definitely just fell in love with him, watching him cook food, and like just man fire food stuff. So. And I was also a fat kid, so I always loved to eat. And I mean,
Like PHAT, like pretty hot and tempting,
no,
or
man,
just
I
no?
was just fat.
Just fat, just F, just with F.
Always in the kitchen, trying
Yeah.
to find something to eat, making something new to eat. So, man, I just it starts there, man. Just like the passion and falling in love with food at a very young age, and just wanting to, make a profession out of it, and, make my family proud, because pretty much everybody in my family can cook. Like, legit, they can cook. And I was just like, well,
But dude, you was a fat kid,
Yeah.
so somebody was doing
I mean, it's an innate ability. I just feel like I
Yeah.
could, take it to the next level. So that's
Right.
what I really wanted to hone in on, is taking it to the next level.
Well, let's backtrack. We jumped right into your profession, but
Mhm.
let's go back to your childhood.
Yeah.
So growing up in Greenwood,
Mhm.
I mean, were you out like in the outskirts, which most of Greenwood is outskirts, but you know what I mean? But like, how was it as a kid, man? What was the vibe?
So like I said, I was a fat kid, so I had a good group of friends. But as a fat kid, you go through all the things like getting bullied and not being able to keep up when the boys are running or stuff like that or whatever. But it wasn't like I was just like huge.
Right.
I was just a fat kid.
Just a big boned
just a,
dude, man.
just a big boy,
kid.
man. So but I mean, me and my friends, we all had a good time or whatever. Back then, did I know I was going to be a chef or anything like that? No, I wanted to be a firefighter, a pilot. That came up one time. I wanted to be a pilot one time, but
Yeah.
I probably could still do that if I want to.
Yeah.
But no, crazy childhood, man. Just growing up with your cousins. That's what I miss a lot is just hanging out with your cousins and your cousins and your friends. Your cousins are like your best friend growing up. Like you're having sleepovers, you're spending the night, y'all watching movies, eating snacks in the middle of the night. That's where it's at, man.
Well, we was I watched the Pivot podcast, man. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite. I don't know if you catch the Pivot
Yeah.
with Fred and RC and them, and they had Glorilla on there the other day.
Big glow.
Yeah, she was talking about like her cousins, and Shane was like, "Now you mean black people cousins or cousins?" And she just said cousins. Like, I'm like, okay, well that doesn't answer the question. But it's like I know some people from Greenwood, man, because I coached football for a long time, and Greenwood is like the mecca of football, man. It's like
It
one
is.
of a few. Like there's
Yeah.
a few spots in South Carolina that's like, man, them boys pump them out, man.
Yeah.
And so, was you part of that, football playing?
All right. So, I mean, if you're familiar with Greenwood, then you know Coach Dula from Greenwood High. So when I started playing football my freshman year, I went to both high schools in Greenwood. So I went to Greenwood High, but I graduated from Emerald. So Greenwood High, our freshman class was stacked, and I could say a couple names, guys that went straight to the NFL, like Marnie Edwards, he was around, Jay Spearman was around, Sam Montgomery, DJ Swearinger, those guys.
How about the tight end? When was he? There's a big tight. What's that boy's name?
No, I don't know, not me.
No, I'm saying there was a tight end that was like played for the Patriots. I'm trying to remember his name.
Oh, Ben, is it?
Ben, yeah,
Yeah,
Ben. something.
yeah.
Was
Ben.
he before you?
Way before me? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm old, bro. Like
Yeah.
they all run together, man.
Yeah. But I played defensive tackle, and I'm a big boy, so
Mhm.
I actually played behind some of the big names and things
Yeah.
like that or whatever. But dude, I wasn't consistent with it. Like I really wasn't trying to play football like
Right.
that or whatever.
They were just recruiting you because you was a big boy.
Pretty much, and like I remember being in the lunchroom and the coach walks up to me, he's like, "Sibert, why you not at practice today?" I was like, "I don't know, coach. I don't think I got it." So, but some crazy stuff happened in school, so I ended up switching schools, and I went to Emerald, and that's when like I really like got in with my best friends at that time. And like I was embraced, and the boys was like, "Come on, man, you gonna play football with us?" I was like, "I don't know, I ain't gonna have a ride or nothing like that." They was like, "No, you gonna play football,"
Right.
and that's probably the best thing I did because during the summers of my sophomore year to my junior and senior year, I dropped so much weight because like I was outside playing football in the heat, and just building that brotherhood with my bros, man, and just like I got decent enough or whatever. Like we would have a good time on the field. So
Man, it's hard to replace that, man. Like when I got done playing, then I started playing adult sports. I was still playing like church league, rec league, 3-on-3 tournaments, like you name it. So I was like 35 years old, man. I'm playing adult flag football on 2 or 3 different teams, like 9 months out of the year. Like I didn't let it go, man. Softball, and then still coaching. Like it's hard when you it's the brotherhood, man. It's like, yeah, you like to play the sport, and the sport's great, but man, it's the brotherhood that you get, the hanging out in the locker room, I mean,
Yeah.
and then what's cool is like when you get older and people talk all the time in work environments about culture. And anytime I hear somebody talk about culture, I always associate it with locker rooms I've been part of. Like that's culture. You know what I'm saying? Because really there's like, I remember, I went to 3 different high schools. But I just remember being, and I remember the vibe in high school was like, I went to Holly Hill Roberts for a little bit. We moved back from Texas, and that's down below Orangeburg. It's like all brothers, man. I'm like the first kid, the first white kid in 9 years. I had to go
You
back
the
through the
token white
yearbooks,
kid.
dude. No, I started, bro. So let's not get with that token stuff. But I was the first white kid in 9 years to make the football and basketball team. Like
Okay.
it was just like rare. So they're in there like flipping through. Like, let's go research this stuff, man. This is like, yeah, he is like the Jackie Robinson of Holly Hill
All right.
in reverse. So I was an inverted Jackie Robinson, but no, man, it was like the culture in everywhere was like just. I remember when I went to Goose Creek High School, and it was like a bunch of, it was a big group of Navy kids there, right? Because Goose Creek's had a big is they reduced it, but it used to be it's a place called Monroe, and they had like 1,500 homes out there, and it was all military. So those kids are like from all over the world, man. Like they come in for 2, maybe 4 years, and they transferring out. So you always have this influx. There's a lot of Filipino kids. Then there's the Goose Creek. We were on the bad side of tracks at Goose Creek, because you had Stratford on the other side. Those were the little, the money kids.
Yeah.
And so, but we had a little bit of them. So it was like a crazy mixture of like rich kids, military kids, and just straight hood kids out there fighting dogs in the backyard on the weekends. Like, and we're all playing football together.
Yeah.
And it was just, but it was the way that we got along. And it was just so cool because like when you got outside of the locker room off the field and you're just walking around into school, it's like everybody's got their little cliques, but
Yeah.
if something got a little sideways, we're all there for each other. You know what I'm saying? And man, that's just so to be in environments, and now you're in a position with your different restaurants, we'll get in that a little bit, but where you can kind of create your own locker room, you create your own culture, your own environment. And I'm assuming that kind of like that experience with sports and obviously growing up with your cousins and that camaraderie and everything, that you just try to reinvent that
Oh yeah.
in the workplace.
Yeah.
So you got so you're married, kids.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that a little bit, man. Tell me about your wife.
So I met my wife online,
Okay.
not on Tinder. It was actually on Hinge. We met online on Hinge. I was 20 something or whatever, but for a good bit, like me and my sister. So when I say my sister, she's actually my cousin, but we've grown up together, and she's just my sister. Like it's kind of like disrespectful to call her my cousin, because like we've been living together for a long time or whatever. So um, I had made my mind up. I told myself at 28 I need to get my life together, and I was just like, the next woman I date, it needs to be the last woman I date. And I met her on Hinge, on a dating app or whatever, and she was in Denver, North Carolina. I thought it was Colorado. So we was messaging back and forth. I was like, wait, you in Denver?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I'm in Denver. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna fly all the way out to Denver just to meet you or whatever. But met online, met at a park. I had my location on, so all my friends knew where I was at in case I was getting catfished or, set up or something like that. Because it's online dating,
Yeah,
and it's
right.
it's 2000 something, so you got to be careful out there. But yeah, Samantha, I met my wife, and really, like, from the get-go, I mean, we just started clicking, like having really deep, intimate conversations. um just like right at the get-go, she was like, we're not gonna have sex till we get married, stuff like that or whatever. I was like, okay, I like her,
Right.
because I mean, it is what it
Oh, yeah.
is. Yeah.
Right.
And like I just fell in love with that. Like I knew when I met her that I was definitely gonna marry her. So we got married in less than a year, way less than a year, probably about 6 or 9 months after we met. So
I don't apologize for my dog running around.
no, you good. I got two at home.
Yeah. Forgot to close the door, so he's just going to be part of the pod. Well, so when was that? You said you was 28? Were you still
20 something.
27 still in Greenwood, or when did you leave Greenwood?
Man, I went back and forth a couple times, but I was fully up here around 20 something, like 23, 24. I was back up here full time,
Now,
back in Greenville full
what were
time.
you doing? So and it kind of interweaves, right, with your profession, but
Yep.
like you went to culinary school.
Uh-huh.
I know you had traveled and worked with some really good chefs in some other areas. So
hmm
talk a little bit about that.
Like you want the perfect timeline, like the actual timeline?
Well, in the 20s, like you were back and forth here, but you
Yeah,
were also, going other places. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So,
Um, so Greenwood. As soon as I graduated, I moved straight to Greenville with my sister Yana, and that's why I went to culinary school. So going to culinary school, I got one of my first jobs in Greenville, and then I got an opportunity to go back down to Greenwood. Well, actually, it's Abbeville. I got an opportunity to go back down to Greenwood for a sous chef position, and at 20, I think about 22, 23 years old, that's at that time it's a little unheard of for somebody that young to get a sous chef position.
mhm.
So I jumped on it, I took it, and I was way before I needed to take a lead position like that, but it was a great experience.
Mhm.
And from that experience, I worked my way into an executive position at another place. I was working in Greenwood at Grand Harbor Golf and Yacht Club
Okay.
down in Greenwood. So I came in as a sous, and then I eventually became the executive chef there. So that was my second stint back down in Greenwood. And then when I left there, I came back up to Greenville and worked at a steakhouse for a month, and then I eventually found Holly Tree, which was my last job before we started
Okay.
everything else.
I played golf with you a few times.
I've
I don't
probably
know if
seen you out there before.
I don't know if I ate. I don't remember if I ate over there. I would remember if it was like you're cooking. I'm like, man, I'm going
Yeah,
over there. It's like that's my main restaurant.
yeah,
You know what I
you
mean?
would.
Yeah, for sure. So just side note, any of them little stints, did you pick up a golf club at all?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I actually started taking lessons. I was in this mindset of like, all right, if I'm gonna be a country club chef and work in these country clubs, I better know how to play some golf because I've always heard the stories like, business deals are made on the
Yeah.
golf course and it's business etiquette and things like that. So I invested. I brought a driver, broke it. Brought another driver, broke it, and I invested in a trainer, like a golf trainer.
Hmm.
So I just couldn't understand that, like, why my big ass can't hit a golf ball. Like, I was like, man, I'm like 6 foot something,
Yeah.
200 plus pounds, and I can't hit a ball 200 yards or whatever. Like,
Right.
why? And I see like this old man comes up next to me effortlessly, just like killing the ball. And I was like,
Mm.
man, come on. So, but yeah, I definitely did my share of golfing. I know enough to play and get by. So
Mm.
really, what I just found out is just about drinking and have a good time on the course. So
Man, I got real competitive with golf, man. But you talking about breaking a golf club.
yeah.
The last time that I got angry at a golf course, it's the most embarrassing story that I could tell probably of myself because I was an adult
hmm
and I knew better. And I was so competitive. Everything I do, I'm really competitive.
Yeah.
But I'd been telling people, and it was a true story, that I was shooting better. I was like probably about a 10 handicap,
Uh-huh.
which to me was good because I didn't start playing until I was 30. So I'm probably 35 at this point. And I play a lot until football season hits, and then being a high school coach and
hmm
working a separate job, and then coaching basketball right after that. And that's just, I had about 4 months a year I played golf, and I played a lot. And then I would just not play for 8 months. So it was just a lot of ups and downs. So I invite my brother out, and he's hearing these stories about me playing golf well. And my son, my youngest son, Cody, had just bought me with his own money for the first time. He had bought me something with his own money, bought me a brand new driver, $400 something driver. So we go out there and we're playing, and I'm playing like crap. My brother's there. It's like, man, this is embarrassing. Because there's different levels of golf. Playing by yourself is one thing, playing with people you know is one thing, and then playing with people you don't know is another. Like, there's levels, like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And I just felt the most pressure I'd felt, dude. And I'm just slicing this driver. It's going everywhere. and I'm blaming the driver. Obviously, it's not the driver's fault, right? And I made an announcement, Mike. I said, if I hit this damn driver one more time and it goes right, I'm snapping in half. I made the announcement. And then everybody got quiet, right? Because it's my son who bought the damn driver, and everybody knows it's my Father's Day gift. And I got up to the next tee box, and the good news is I did not slice it right, but I snap hooked it right into some people's yard, like right up there. And dude, we were all having a good time until we wasn't.
Okay.
And when that ball went over there, everybody just like, oh hell. And here's the thing, like there was a moment, this is why it's embarrassing. Because there was a moment where I knew I should just laugh. But then I'm like, I'm gonna be a man of my principles. I said that if I did this again, I was gonna snap his ass. So I think everybody thought we were out of the woods, which made it worse because I walked off the tee box, and as I'm walking over, I think Cody or somebody was going to stick a peg in to hit the next one, and I just like boop. And I don't even know why I did it, bro.
You told yourself you was gonna do it. That's why.
So then my son didn't speak to me the rest of the day, the rest of the time. And so I told him in the cart, I said, I promise you, you will never see me get mad like that again on the golf course. And from that moment, I've gotten internally, man, my lungs was punching my kidneys. My kidneys was like like internally, I was in a battle, brother. But externally, I'm like, I've gritted my teeth until I think they all got loose at one point. But man, I just so I can't do it. So I had to go immediately spend $120, get a new shaft. So
I learned early on that ain't really for me. So
well, you know Lou Holtz, you got a Carolina shirt on, so I don't know if you know old Lou, but Lou said, I heard him say this at a golf tournament. He goes, I used to get mad during a golf tournament, or they were playing golf, and then I realized I'm not good enough to get that mad. So that's kind of stuck with me too.
I like that.
Yeah. So so let's talk about your wife. So I know you met her on Hinge. Y'all hit it off right off the bat, right? What was it like whenever so I'm sure you told her from jump, like, I'm a chef. Okay. At what point did you start actually cooking for her and she's like, oh, he's a real chef?
Hey man, so it's different. First of all, she's from New Orleans.
Oh,
so
the bar is high. The bar is high. The bar is up there.
I mean, like, everybody know how to cook in New Orleans. So, and my perception of New Orleans is not what their perception of New Orleans is. I was so nervous to cook for her family the first time. Like, cooking, like me just cooking was fine. Like I pull out some things like I know I'm gonna kill this. Like, I'm gonna make this little pasta dish or whatever. I'm gonna get her with this one. And those are fine. But then I started trying to make Cajun food for her, and she was like, "Hold on, bro. let me holler at you real quick." I call myself making a gumbo. That's one of my favorite stories. Like, I call myself making a gumbo. I done pulled up the recipe online. I done Googled it, and first thing I start off, I have tomatoes and stuff in it or whatever, and like that's just a big no in Cajun culture. It's always like a big conflict, like tomatoes or no tomatoes, and like true Cajun, they just like, nah, bro, we're not putting tomatoes in there. Like, let's not do that.
Right.
So I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to make gumbo for my wife and her Cajun family, and she's like, "Babe, the soup is good." I was like, "Oh, you don't like my gumbo?" She was like, "It ain't gumbo." I was like, "Well, why is it not gumbo?" She was like, "First of all, you got tomatoes in it, and like it's not dark enough." And like she just kept going and kept.
You made goulash, bro.
Bro, it wasn't gumbo. And then I caught myself making jambalaya one time, and again she was like, the shrimp are nice, but the rice is not cooked right. The flavor's not there. All this stuff, like, it's shrimp and rice you made. You didn't make jambalaya. So I was like, oh man.
So she's got you questioning everything.
Yeah.
Like, am I even really a chef?
Man, and she's like, she's like, man, no, we're gonna get you down to New Orleans because like I want to expose you to like real Cajun food, and like I'm the type of person, like I feel like I have a superpower. Like I can taste something one time and kind of figure out how to make it, and if not, get like very damn close to it.
Right.
And that's something like I've always had. So like once we started when she started cooking, like she made some of the best food I've ever had. Like I changed my crab cake recipe because she made crab cakes for me one time. I was like, damn, I need to step it up, man. Like this is good.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. So where did you get to a point to where you knew you was gonna do your own thing? Like it was one thing to work in restaurants and be a
Right.
chef,
Right.
right? There's a lot of people that are a chef, but they don't own their own restaurant. They're
Right.
not an entrepreneur.
Right.
They're just a master of their craft. So where did you cross that line?
2020.
Okay.
Yeah. 2020. I really felt like I was doing good for myself. I had a salary job. It was comfortable. That was the problem. It was very comfortable. Um, and, like I just thought that, having this salary job, I'm making, decent money. I thought was decent money. And, I was a bachelor for a good bit of time, and maybe I didn't manage my money properly. No, maybe I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't manage my money properly, and things like that. And then like I get a wife, or I get a girlfriend at the time or whatever, and you start getting somebody who's like speaking life into you and like telling you like, hey, like you're really good at this, and you can do this for yourself, right? And that's really what it took. Like it took somebody to tell me that um you know how much money you made an hour today or whatever. And I was like, no. She's like, you made like almost $5 an hour today because of all the overtime that you work and all the time that you're putting in, and you're not really giving yourself the time you need um to like be great. She's like, you can't put your time towards your own stuff because you're working somewhere else, uh not even 40 plus hours, like 80 hours a week. So I'm working for somebody else 80 hours a week. So boom, COVID happens. Can I say COVID? Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah, I think
So
yeah.
2020 happens, and man, I'm just like, I'm in the kitchen. I'm looking around like I haven't retained much of my staff. People going home. They sitting at home getting that check, and I feel like it's my obligation as the executive chef of the country club. Like, oh, I gotta be here, so I gotta make sure these people eat and all these things. So um, and I just start realizing like I'm basically, it's like two of us in there. It's basically like two of us in there running the whole entire kitchen. So not only are we feeding the members of the country club, we open it up to the public and we feed people in the public because, folks don't know what to do, like the neighborhoods and things like that around there. And I'm just realizing like I can really do this myself. And she's saying the same thing too. So, um, that's when we're just like, okay, like maybe we need to really tap back into like the whole catering thing or whatever. So, I guess to make a long story short, I was presented with a scenario, kind of when COVID dialed down just a little bit. There's budget cuts and all kind of things going on. So I won't fault my former employer for that or whatever.
Right.
Um, but I definitely feel like what I tried to do during COVID, it was just like I'm glad it happened. I tried to create a new position at my former job and tell them that, like I could be more of like a food and beverage director instead of just your executive chef. And so obviously that's gonna come with a significant increase in salary and things like that, but they was not hearing that at all. It was actually countered with, how about you just, step down as executive chef and be a sous chef and learn more and do things. And I'm just like,
Mm.
I don't know
That's the
about that.
wrong answer, brother.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And like me, I'm like, well, this is a stable job. This is consistent. Like the world's crazy right now. My wife, she's like, fuck that. Sorry. And you might have to
love
bleep that out. But she's,
No, man.
yeah,
No.
she's like, fuck that. We're not doing that or whatever. So, um, you know, let's get some severance and let's get this catering popping because you can do it. And just like that, I mean, within a month, we're getting the catering started, and private dinners and all these things are going, and we're just getting to the point where it's just like, okay, like we can actually make a legit business out of this, and just starting out as a private chef. That was the whole point. It's just like, let's be a private chef, and I'll do some caterings here or there. I'll pick up another job. So I was still in the mindset of getting a job, and Just having my wife, she was like,
She
no,
was
like,
like, no, we going
no,
big.
like
Yeah.
she comes from families who had successful businesses.
Mhm.
I haven't really seen that before.
Right.
I didn't really think it was possible. It's too scary, so I'm really not gonna do it. That's why I said I was very comfortable in my job I had because I was paying my bills.
Mhm.
I wasn't doing a lot of extra stuff that I wanted to. I wasn't making the impact that I could make that I can make now. But she was just like, no, like we're gonna go all in on this and let's start our own business.
That's strong. So how long were you? The catering was like entry level. That's the first thing you did.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I remember when I met you, um, you had joined Fuel the Mastermind, and it was
yeah,
like trying to get around people that were like thinking bigger and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I
yeah.
could see a massive amount of growth. And obviously, you were already kind of on that trajectory. That's why you joined.
hmm
But then that just kind of like threw some fuel on it. You know what I'm
Man,
saying?
that's exactly what we needed because we're kind of like out there on the island. What the hell I'm doing?
Hmm.
Entrepreneur, businessman. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I know how to cook. And I didn't really know how to set up the business side, but that's where my wife came in. She was very business savvy, so she can hop on the phone with her uncle and be like, "Hey, how did you guys start this? How did you guys do that? What all did you do?" and things like that. So take that information with what she already knows because she's smart as hell. So,
Hmm.
take that information, what she already knows, and let's combine it to what we're doing and how we're growing. So, then you put the 5-year plan together and, set your goals and all these things. So, um, feud happened, and in the midst of happening, we were approached about opening a restaurant, and it's just like, man, this is crazy how all this is happening like right here in the middle of the storm, like so the middle of the storm of 2020, all this is happening, and here I am. I'm scared to put products out there, to put pictures out there of what we're doing because I don't want to get overwhelmed with influx of orders and all that stuff coming in. It's like I want to have it together before it starts. And like as an entrepreneur, you learn so many things like waiting to be perfect. It's never gonna happen. Like if you just keep
Yeah.
waiting and waiting, trying to make something be perfect, it's not gonna happen. So you just got to do it.
Fail,
And
fail fast and fail forward.
oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like you just got to do it. So we were approached about opening a restaurant, and I was like, well, I guess we're doing it because I don't have my job anymore, so I'm gonna create my own opportunities and things like that. So
Well, I tell you, that to me, and I say this all the time in different groups that I'm in and being with different, people that are various levels of business and where they're at on their walk in life, you know what I mean? And so I just say this all the time, like sometimes we're humans aren't meant to be, we're programmed to be comfortable.
hmm
We're not programmed to be happy. We're not programmed to be sad. We're programmed to be comfortable. So it's like what we're used to is what we're comfortable to. You know
hmm
what I'm saying? So where, come from Greenwood, and your backstory and everything
yeah,
like that, you were just comfortable
hmm
with this level of life.
hmm
You know what I mean? And your wife comes along, she's like, oh, hell no. And she's like pulling you along. But I feel like what happens a lot of times is, you know, I'm a man of faith. I feel like there's a higher power.
oh yeah,
And I think the Lord takes you and says, okay, this is what I see for you. This is your plan, but you can't see it. And so you have to lose your job. You have to have those conversations where why don't you just take a step back and be a sous chef and learn some more stuff. And it's like, and then your wife was put there intentionally to be that person that's supposed to be in your life. You know what I mean? You had already made a decision. It's just the way the pieces fall that when they're falling, you don't understand
yeah,
the big picture. And then God has taken you from this comfort because that's how you're wired to be comfortable. It's like, no, man, you got to get out the hallway because I got a door you got to get into. And so I remember when I met you, I felt like looking back on it, I felt like you were in the hallway. You know what I'm saying? Like you were waiting for the doors. You was like checking doors, like, all right, one of these doors is the right one.
yeah.
And your wife is out in front. She's like, this one right here, this is the door right here. And like, just to give her flowers for a moment, man, like she is an extremely impactful woman.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I could, when you're in the room with her, you can just feel her energy,
Yep.
and she is just like, bam, what's next? Let's go, let's go. And so I was really impressed with her and her just bulldog mentality. Like she was
Yeah.
just in it, man. And I was like, there's no way, because I worked at Fuel, so Me and Am and a couple of people that were there, like recruiting people into the mastermind, and then whiteboarding a lot of their stuff, and just kind of helping coach there. Um, like we would have conversations about you guys when you weren't there. It wasn't bad. It's like
Yeah.
we're not talking trash, but it's like, how can we help these people? How can we serve them? And how can we put them and connect them where they need to go?
Needed all that.
And man, it was like when I met you guys together, because I'd met her first, I think, and then I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw y'all together, I was like, dude, there's no way they fail.
Right.
There's no way they fail. This is ordained, brother. Like this is happening. Like I don't know the pace that it's gonna happen. I don't know where it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Not, but this has happened. And so it was just been great to see that journey for you guys, man. So
Thank
but yeah, going back to where God just moves you, bro. Like you don't want to move, you're hunkered down, and you know, He puts people like your wife, you know, in your life and says, "No, we got bigger things, man.
Yeah.
Let's go." So who was your biggest influence? Would you say? I know you mentioned your grandmother, but as far as becoming that professional level, like, oh, this is the standard. This is how you go about. This is how you maneuver in this space. Who would you say that person is for you?
Man, that's tough. Like, cause honestly, what I will say is like I've never been one of those persons that's like, man, I'm gonna read a bunch of books and I'm gonna watch a bunch of educational stuff. I just kind of feel like I got it, so I can do it. Um, I've it's been more of like a lot of self-taught stuff that I've done, man. I can't really single out a single person that's just like, yeah, that person like was super, influential in what I did and things like that. It's just more of like I see, like it could be like a character,
Mm-hmm.
um, like it could be a storyline or something like that that I just fall in love with, and that influenced me. I'm a big Eagles fan, so like, I can draw inspiration from my football team and things like that. So
I
um,
got you.
it's just motivation and things like that. But like obviously in the industry, there's guys that I look around to, I look up to in the industry, and I see what they're doing, and I see how they're doing things or whatever. So more importantly, what we've wanted, what we have created is our own bubble and like just our own thing, and not getting caught up in what a lot of people are doing and how they're doing it. It's just like I'm gonna do what I do and try to do it as best as I can do.
Well, I got this quote that I come across. It says, "Recipes tell you nothing. Learning techniques is the key." Would you say that's true?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate following the recipe.
Yeah.
Especially, that's why I don't like baking. Baking is not my forte because you have to follow a recipe pretty much to the T. If you put a tablespoon more baking soda or baking powder and something like that, it's over. Like you done messed up the whole dish. As far as cooking, if you put a little bit too much salt in it, you can dilute it. If it's too spicy, you can add some vinegar or something to balance it out, like add some acidity to balance it out. So I hate following the recipe.
Man, I got into this baking. Like I went baking crazy for a while because my grandmother passed away. The only thing that I wanted from my grandma was like, dude, y'all can have everything in here, bro. I just want that recipe.
Yeah.
Like that. She had a little with the recipes and handwritten. And I've actually got a scar on top of my head because I lived with my grandmother from the time I was a little bit over a year till I was probably 3.5. So I lived with her, and she just baked a cake every week. She would bake a cake on Sunday and put it in a little cake dish, and you just eat on that cake that week. Right? So that was just like one of the things she made. She always had yeast up in the windowsill. Like she was
Yeah.
always making her own bread and everything, sourdough rolls and bread and everything. So I was in that culture with her a lot, just watching her. So I would get up on the counter and just like help her cook. You know what I mean? Like that was a big thing. So it's nowhere to your level, but like within my circle, like everybody considers me to be the good cook, right? So,
Okay.
but I just always took pride in it. Like I kept tweaking this and tweaking
Yeah.
that. You just get better at it. You know what I mean? You screw it up. But man, I went on this cake run, man, and I bought all the stuff, bro. Like I got a toolbox full of cake decorating toolkit. Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. And I said I'm gonna make a orange, like bundt cake or something like Yeah, it's like an orange bunt cake or something. And I made it perfect the first time. I
Mhm.
made it 10 times after that, and it never was right, bro. I'm like following the damn recipe. Like, I don't even, so bacon, I'm just like, man, I mean, some stuff I can make
It might have been
dead
too
on it,
cold
man.
outside or something.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
so sensitive, man.
Yep.
Like, and so I was like, screw that. I'm gonna go back and start smoking meat. Like, let's go
You can't lose that. You can't lose with that.
back. So yeah, man. So let's talk about parenthood, man.
Okay.
So tell me about your kids.
Yeah. So first off, I got a big 15-year-old. Obviously, I adopted him from my wife's previous situation, but the way we look at it, like man, we're so connected. Like I tell people I had him at 17, and like I don't care. Like I don't care at all. Like that's my boy. I tell people all the time. I was like, I feed him enough, he'll look just like me. All those things, like he didn't start getting taller until he met me. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
all me.
Yeah.
That's
You're
all me.
rubbing off on them, man.
So
Brandon, pull up. Check them slides right quick. I got a little picture we're gonna share. Go through a couple of photos.
yeah.
It's in the thing right there. You don't have to do all that. It's down in the huh? Go down into the thing and just add it to the.
It's okay.
Huh?
It was coming up earlier. Is it one of the buttons to the left of the red? Because I think that was one of the buttons you pressed earlier. No? It's okay.
All right. So what are we looking at here?
So that's a swamp rabbit game right there. That's Blaze right there. Me, of course, my wife, Samantha, and baby Blue. I don't know how old Blue was right there. He's probably about 6 months right there.
Mm.
So we out there in the streets at 6 months old.
Man, that's good stuff. Now, I'm surprised that's a hockey game and it's not a WWE or whatever.
You're
Like
right.
you a big,
Big wrestling fan.
yeah. Let's talk about that, bro. Like, so as a kid, like, who was your guy coming up? Because you're younger than me.
Man. All right. I mean, it's a lot. So first of all, DX, man.
Okay.
Triple H and the boys. Man, I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting in the guidance counselor's office because I didn't got in trouble for doing suck it chops down the hallway or quoting something from wrestling. Uh, Always just getting in trouble from making a wrestling quote. If it was The Rock or Stone Cold or whatever, like I remember one time getting in an argument with somebody in class, and it was about wrestling. So like we got sent to the guidance counselor's office. His name was William. I remember this story. It's crazy. His name was William, and she was like, y'all can't be play fighting and stuff in school or whatever. And I was like, yeah, Will. And I was like, and that's the bottom line because she said so. And he was like, see, he's doing it now. He's doing it now. And I was like, what you talking about? So, but yeah, man, of course, like Rock, Stone Cold, DX, those are my guys growing up.
That was way after me, bro. I gave up on wrestling when I was 12, and I'm gonna tell you why. I was a huge wrestling fan, bro. Like every week I watched it, but that was back. Like I was watching Jimmy Super Snuka, the Junkyard Dog, the Boogie Woogie Man, Rock and Roll Express. Like that was me.
That was
Wahoo
wonderful.
McDaniel. You know what I mean? Like I mean, it was man. It was Dusty Rhodes. You know what I'm
There you
saying? And they came every Friday. They came down to Charleston, to the North Charleston Coliseum. And my friend at the time, Joey Parker, Joey's mom worked night shift, so she would take us and drop us off. Well, the gates didn't open until 5:30 or 6, but she had to drop us off. She'd pick us up from school and just go drop us off because she had to go to work. So we would be out there for an hour and a half just hanging out by the gate. Like you couldn't even get in. So security people are just showing up, clocking in for work, and we're already sitting out there, you know what I mean? And so we figured out where all the wrestlers, everybody was coming in. So we just walked around and sat back there and we'd catch them coming in, right? And of course, you ain't got cell phones, everything, so you just see them, and you know, people think
Can't
you're
do
lying.
that,
Like, I saw him, dude. Like seriously. So I mean, Ric Flair legit just rolled up in like limos and stuff with chicks. I was like, this is crazy, man. So I actually shook hands, and Ricky Steamboat rubbed my head one time, so that was
That's
kind of
cool.
cool. So we're like, I'm in it, bro. There was a cage fight one time, and I get him there, and it was the Russians, Nikita Koloff and them boys. They was wrestling with Boogie Woogie Man, and a couple of guys had teamed up with him. And I don't know how we did it, but we got up towards the front. So we're like, man, we're right there, bro. Man, I watched my man take a blood packet out, put it on his forehead. I was like, man, you just ruined my whole childhood. Like I'd have rather known the whole the whole Santa Claus story
Oh man,
before I saw that.
That
It
was-
broke my heart, bro.
that's amateur. Usually they just take a razor and they'll do like a clean cut.
This was legit, like right in my face, dude. But I'm gonna tell you what I did. Man, we were on a mission, man. Like we would steal chalk from art class and come home and just chop it up, try to figure out where the straw, because the great Kabuki he'd fight a whole fight, bro.
yeah.
He'd fight for 20 minutes, man. And then all of a sudden he'd blow out this perfect powder. I was like, where the hell did he have that powder at? So we swallowed so much chalk, bro, like it was like clumped up, and we were just spitting out little clumps of red stuff. And so we just went through probably $100 worth of chalk in 4th grade, like just trying to figure out how to. But we would fight, you know, them big green power boxes.
Yep.
It's in the refrigerator
Yep.
in the
Front
neighborhoods.
yard, yeah.
Man, so we lived in a trailer park as usual, but we were on the bad end where they didn't have underpinning. Like we were down on the side that you could just see
Yeah.
under the house. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there was an empty lot that stayed empty for a long time. There's a green electric box. That's where we would have our wrestling matches. So we get up there, man, and I remember Joey put this kid Larry in a figure 4. And this is before jiu-jitsu. Like we didn't know how joints worked and stuff. So I got up on the green box, and I'm in this particular match, I'm Dusty Rhodes. Okay. So maybe it's because in my mind I'm 270 pounds. Like maybe it's because the role I was playing I weighed more
Okay.
in real life. But I jump off and land on my man's leg, and it sounded like a baseball bat hitting a brick wall. Bam. Just snap his femur right in half. And he starts yelling, and I get up, I slap my hand and just drop my elbow on him, because I don't realize, I heard the sound, but I didn't realize that my man was potentially gonna die, because there's an aorta running through here.
Yeah.
So or there's a main artery. So anyway, we about killed Larry. So Larry's in,
Larry.
he's messed up, man. Like
You got to throw the X up.
yeah, we so that we got in trouble. The whole neighborhood we got on like wrestling restrictions. Like, like nobody could wrestle no more. But so yeah, man, it's cool. And I still don't really. I don't have anything against it, bro. I just don't.
Watch your words. Watch your
I
words.
don't know. I just like USC and stuff. Like
I get it.
it's kind of like the difference of '90s basketball and current basketball.
I feel that.
Like, bro, he didn't touch you.
I feel that.
And for some reason LeBron's in the sixth row holding his forehead. They're like, bro, nobody touch you, bro. But anyway, so you take your kids, your boy like it?
Yeah, man, that's how we first started bonding, was like over wrestling, because it was an interest of both of us. So
Mhm.
you know, he's really big into games. He loves games. He's recently fell in love with basketball, so that's great for us. But wrestling was one of those first things. So we would sit down and we would watch, the Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown,
Mhm.
and the pay-per-views. It just, we can engage, we can talk about it, and just like have fun and be like, all right, who you think gonna win or whatever. And I think the best thing about wrestling is like, because I've been watching it for so long, it's predictable.
Yeah.
A lot of things are predictable, so I'll be like, watch, you finna come out. Like, watch, you about to do this move. Oh yeah, that's it, he
Yeah.
done. Like, this is it, this finna be the end of the match. And he'll look at me, he's like, how'd you know it was gonna happen? I was like, it's good.
They
Like
do
that.
they do some crazy athletic stuff though. Like,
Yeah.
it's changed, man.
Yeah.
Like from back when I was watching it, I'm like seeing stuff because Jimmy's Superfly Snooker, man. That guy, he get out there in the middle of the ropes,
Yeah.
like he bounce and get out there and do some stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody else just over at the turnbuckle, like nobody could do that.
Yeah.
Like, now, like they're so athletic.
No, it's you gotta have an appreciation for it. So that's why,
Definitely.
like, a long time ago, I wrote down like the things you're thankful for, and I wrote down wrestling because it helped me build a bond, with my son, and it created conversation
Yeah.
and impact and things like that. So like, it's cool.
Yeah, for sure, man. The storylines are cool. I remember I legit cried. There was 2 times I cried over sports when I was
Okay.
a kid. Right. Number one was when my Cowboys lost. I was a huge Cowboy fan growing up.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm definitely sorry. It's my dad's fault, and he's passed away now. I'm not going to talk trash, but he could have done better.
Hmm.
You know, and in that one area of life, he could have raised me better, man. But he had me wearing Cowboy shirts on picture day every year.
Yep.
Like, so I was a huge Cowboy fan, but we lost to the Redskins in the NFC Championship game, and we had just lost to the Niners the year before. So then it's like we lost again, and we were in RFK back in the day. That was the Redskins' old stadium,
Really.
and I remember there was still time left on the clock, and we needed to go take a knee, and only Drew Pearson walked back out there. The whole team had left the field, like left. And Drew Pearson walked back out there by himself and just picked up the ball just to start the clock. We didn't even have a legal formation. We didn't have 11 guys out there, but just to get the clock to officially run. And dude, I was crying. And my dad got up and me, like, why are you crying? Like, it's a football game. And I was like, so that was one time. And the second time was wrestling.
Really.
Yes. And they took Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant
Mm.
and they cut his hair off. They kept threatening to do it, man, for weeks. They kept saying we're gonna, and they come out there with the scissors. I was like, dude, they ain't never gonna do that. That's it. The Boogie Woogie Man,
It's good storytelling, man.
man, he got me. I was crying, man. I was sad for weeks, bro.
I get it.
Because
get it.
that was before CGI. Like,
Yeah.
that was real.
Yeah.
Like, they cut my man's hair off.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I'm just going down memory
Nah,
lane.
man.
I'm just getting teared up right
That's why we love it. That's why we love it, man. The memories.
Yeah, man.
So
So fast forward, like childhood, parenthood. What would you say, becoming a parent, obviously, your wife, already had a son that you kind of absorbed, and so you took him on. At what age was he already?
he was 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's jumping right into the fire, bro. Like,
Yeah.
you got a preteen that's just about to just jump off and
Yeah.
start, and you didn't warm up to that. Like, it's like, all right, we're doing this thing right
Yeah.
now. What lessons and things that you learn as a kid in observing your parents and your the way that you were raised did you take and bring with you, and what kind of things were you intentional about changing to be more intentional about this or that or whatever?
Well, like as a kid, you're like, man, I can't wait to grow up. Like, that's probably the wildest shit I've ever said. Like, man, I can't wait to grow up, man. Like, nah. But you, there's things that happen and you're just like, I'm not gonna do that. You know, like when I become a parent, I won't do it that way and do things that way, or vice versa. It's just like, well, this was how I was raised. This is how I did it. And I think the beauty in basically marrying into another culture, because my wife, she's a Native American and Creole, so they do things a little bit different in their culture. So it brought insight to me in like how we do things in our culture, and I think it's been a great balance of parenting, because like one of the things, for instance, more often to not, like I've always thought that whenever you turn 18, you got to leave the house. Like that's always been my mindset. Like I don't know, that's just kind of like what I heard. Like I couldn't wait to leave the house when I was 18 or 17 or 18 or whatever. It's like, man, I can't wait to move out and do my own thing or whatever. And it really sets you, honestly, it sets you back like a few years, because you're not mature enough, you're not ready for it, especially if you're not set up for it financially, mentally, and going into it, being very immature, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna have to adopt a 10-year-old or whatever. And then that means like if we get married, and this is your mindset as a young person, like that. If you get married, then the kids got to stay in the house for 18 years. I mean, until he's 18, and then we can have the house back to ourselves or whatever. And when we just started kind of like talking about things, she was like, "No, I don't want him to move out the house." I was like, "What you mean? You don't want him to move out the house? Like he got to go when he turned 18." She's
He
like,
can pay rent.
she's like, "No." She's like, "Babe, that doesn't make sense or whatever." I was like, "Why not?" She was like, if you think about like most successful families and things like that or whatever, in different cultures, a lot of people stay in the same house. They do a lot of things differently. Like you're not leaving the house until you're ready. And then some cultures, like you already have a perfect credit score by the time you turn 18, so you can go out there and do whatever you need to do. And these are things I never really thought about it like that. So like, she's like, I'm not sending my 18-year-old child out in the world to fail when he's going to be going to school and paying all this money to be in college, air quotations, paying this money to stay in an apartment, like $1,500 to $2,000 a month for college and all these things, and for rent and all that stuff. Like it just doesn't really make sense. She's like, think about that. At 18, like how far behind the eight ball you're gonna be versus leaving the house when you're 20 something years old, when you have some money in the bank, you're all the money that you're making, you're putting it to the side and you have somewhere to start. So it's like boom, that's a generational curse. Like so now I have the opportunity to break a generational curse with parenting and things like that. So this it's a mindset now that I know that what I do for me, I don't do much for me anymore. Like it's for the boys, it's for my family, it's for the next up or whatever. So um that was like one of the big things. And then it was him being a boy, obviously, and then me, I was like, well, whenever I do coach him and parent him, it's just like, hey bro, so I did that a long time ago, and I did it way better than you. And it was like, if you go do that, like you gotta do it better than that. So let me help you out. So instead of doing this, do this, and like you'll hate me now, but you'll thank me later. Like if I have to discipline you and take away the game or something like that or whatever. What I never really want to focus on is punishment. Man, I hate punishment. I think about all the times I was put on punishment, and no disrespect to like my mom and dad and nothing like that or whatever, but like if you think about the prison system and stuff like that, like like where's the rehab? You can just throw somebody on punishment, then what does that fix? Like what are you doing to fix the issue of why you're on punishment and things like that? So we have deep conversations. So like conversations for a teenager where I'm like, hey, I'm putting you on game. Like you're gonna be more advanced than half the kids your age or whatever when you go to school. Like you can have advanced conversations and things like that. And when it comes to parenting, it's like no gentle parenting. I learned that from my wife. She was like, no gentle parenting. There's parents who are just like, oh, it's okay, you can do that. We'll try it this way next time, or whatever. It's just like, hey, tighten up,
Yeah.
tighten up, or whatever. Like, we don't do that. We don't get down like that. That's disrespectful. You're raised way better than that. Like having the manners and things like that that you can instill in them in a young age is, the structure in your life and all that, because everybody doesn't have that. And I tell him all the time, I was like, dude, you're blessed to have two parents who care about you. Everybody don't have it like that. So, take advantage of having two parents. It's a difference. So take advantage of that.
Well, there's when we talk about generational curses, I think that there's a lot of things that, people look at a black and white divide, but I really see a lot of, it's just almost like a financial divide. It's a mindset divide, like because of the surroundings that you're in. Um, I grew up, I follow Theo Vaughn, the comedian. Like, he's hilarious, man. And he was talking about growing up a lot like I did.
Yep.
So he was like, all of his black friends were like, man, y'all holding us back. He's like, man, y'all. He said, well, I would do this and just move right next door, bro. Like, I go to the same school as you do, bro. And so,
Mindset.
so it's the mindset, bro. And that's the division. That's the dividing line. But it's kind of like, for me, I was thinking about, like, as a parent, we got pregnant. I had my son at 17. My ex-wife, we made it 33 years. So in a lot of ways, I say we did make it. You know what I mean? Most people don't make it 33, or somebody dies or something 33 years. So we just happen to still be alive. But the reality is, like, people say, well, you can't be a parent. Like, you won't make it. I'm like, dude. But in my mind, this is my mind. My mind is, I have to keep a house, not be in the street, because there's times we lived in the car for a little while. Like, it's, some things happen when I was a kid. So I was like, okay, I can do better than that. I can keep the house. I can keep us in somewhere. I got to feed them, right? I got to keep the power on. Like, in my mind, the bar was so low to be a parent. I just got to keep you alive, bro. Like, and people tell me, like, you're not gonna be able to do this. Like, dude. And I was like, F you, like, I'm gonna do this, right?
Yeah.
And on that, with that being the bar, I did it.
Yeah.
Right. But as I got older, I didn't realize the amount of conversations that my parents didn't have with me, the intentionality that wasn't happening, that set me in a mindset that was different. It was different than the financial setback that we had, and that mindset is one thing and affects you a certain way. But there's also people in poor neighborhoods that are intentional, have great conversations, and raise good kids, are intentional about discipline and, like doing the right thing and all that stuff. It felt like we were just kind of floating around. Like, what happened. Like, just don't get caught, you can get your ass beat. Like, it was like, there wasn't intentionality. With the Bison Tribe, the group that we started, I remember there's a guy named Andres that came in. It was one of our first few meetings. And, he talked about how his family, and he's got a couple kids that are nearly grown, and he's got one that's a little bit younger, but they always had what they call family circle every night at 7 o'clock. After they ate dinner, they came and had family circle, and they would sit like in the floor, and they would just circle up and go around, and I guess they would take turns each night, and one of the kids would pray, and they would have just like a conversation, like, and when I heard that, I was like, man, like, I'm just thinking back to my childhood, to my kids' childhood. Like, how different would life be if you just did that one thing?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's a lot of it is living and learning, and you look back and say, okay, and I never held anything against my parents, because they did what they were shown. Like, it's not, and I don't even consider generational curses. It's just everybody does what they're used to doing. Like, we didn't get in the right rooms around the right people to show us there's a better way to do it.
Right.
Unfortunately for me, by the time I started figuring out a bunch of this stuff, my boys were pretty much grown, and me and my ex are, on the way out, divided up or whatever. And so now it's like my kids see a much different version of me today. So I'm gonna be a great granddad if they ever get on the stick on that. Not my daughter. I don't want to kill nobody. But my boys, it's past time, bro. Y'all, let's get on this thing. If I got to buy y'all some pills, I don't know what I got to do. But make this thing happen, bro. But my point is, like, now I feel like I would be a great dad.
Yeah.
Right. What's great about you, and I think a lot of it, I'm sure, goes back to your wife, and because y'all are a team. But just knowing to be intentional about those things, right? And so your kids are going to directly, you know, benefit from that. But it's just not knowing, you know, there's always new discoveries. Like by the time your kid's 10, like there's already seeds that should have been planted that would have helped you when you was 10, right? Cody Freeland, I don't know if you know Cody, but he runs the UFC gym, and he talks about a lot of stuff in depth. Like he's a really deep thinker, and he was just sharing how, you know, kids up until they're 7 years old, really the last trimester, before you're even born, up to you're about 7 years old, that you're really just absorbing your environment. You know what I mean? You're just being programmed, and then after that, you know, there's 7 year increments. So then the next 7 years, there's different cultures, but there's a culture that he speaks about. I can't remember exactly what it is now, but for the first 7 years, it's like it's all about them. You're just serving them, like you're just doing it. And then the next 7 years, they're serving you. So you're like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. And then that last 7 years, from like 15 on, now you're part of the decision making process. So now, what do you think we should eat this week? Like, let's make a menu. You know what I'm saying? Like, where you want to go on vacation this year. So now they're part of that. So by the time they get through that 21 years, again, that goes past 18, right?
Yeah.
But now you've really been molded and set up for success, right? Dude, my parents wasn't thinking that.
No.
Like, they're like, man, we just moved to another town, man. Where's the weed, man? It's like, so, and it's just the life, bro. Like, you just, you know, you don't hold against nobody, man. Like, I still love my childhood. I'm sure you loved your childhood,
Absolutely.
but you live and learn. And the big thing is being intentional about recognizing, being self-aware.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And making those changes.
And you don't want them to make mistakes that you made. So you've already had the experience. You went through certain things. So it's just like, I'm gonna just go ahead and set you up for success. So like, I'm not even gonna try to put you in a situation where you would go through a scenario that I went through. So I'll even tell you the scenario that I went through, just to make sure you don't have to go through it or whatever. And you know, like if that does happen, like this is how we fix it. This is how we go through it, and things like that. So
Good stuff, man. So you said before you don't really do a lot of books and stuff like that, but obviously you've been in the right rooms and around the right
yeah.
people. So
I have
talk
to
a little
now.
bit. One of the things that we do in the Bison Tribe is our core values. The N in Bison is never stop growing. So we're always trying to work on personal development and things of that nature. Last month we had we read the book by David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. Great book, and then we kind of talk about what all we got, and it's amazing how everybody got something totally different from the same book. You know, so it's cool to kind of have that process and everything. Now we're doing the 5 love languages, man, which is like really insightful of how everybody, you can connect with people differently. Everybody, you know, connects differently, and feels valued differently. So it's really beyond just, you know, your wife or girlfriend. I mean, it helps you relate with your kids better, and then other people. You kind of see, okay, words of affirmation is going to help motivate this person. So I need to say, you know, encourage them this way or whatever. Some people like rewards more, so like you're gonna, you know, so there's just different ways to connect. So even as a business leader, I think it would be great to take that book in, just because it's going to help you lead. I'm always trying to look at how I can be a better leader.
Right. We
So
got to.
obviously, so and when you're responsible for these people, like how do I motivate them? And the 5 love language really gets into how, you know, now the shady part is if they're all about like physical touch, and you got to go up to some dude and like massage his shoulder or something like that might be weird. But you know what I'm saying? It's just good to know
Yeah.
how to read, you know, how to read that, and so we do that. But for yourself, what has helped you grow on a personal level, from like a personal development type?
Definitely feud. Like the early stages of feud, it had the accountability built in where it's just like, all right, well, I'm kind of surrounded by, because there were books and stuff in there or whatever, and like here I am, you know, I'm sitting in the room, and I won't lie, man, I used to get a little discouraged sitting at the table, and I'm hearing people talk all these numbers, like, yeah, I did 1 million last quarter, or yeah, I did, you know, a quarter this, whatever, like just big crazy numbers that I haven't seen or heard before. And I'm just like, man, what am I doing sitting at a table with people like this or whatever? And now as I mature and grow, I was like, now I know why I'm sitting at the table with people, talking about these numbers and things like that, because that's where I want to be. Like, I want to be able to have the fuel I need to continue to grow. And, if you just have a conversation with, like, what books are you reading or whatever? And they'll rattle off like 5 books. And that's where I kind of started getting into books and like making myself read. Because that was an issue. I just didn't want to take the time to make myself sit there and read. And I would tell myself like, all right, let me sit down and read this book or whatever. So it's just like negative energy already going into the book.
Right.
But man, when you get like that pit in your stomach where it's growling and like you just mad hungry, so it's like you just can't stop consuming it. So that's when I just really started diving into books and getting some books. And like I'll start off with a little thin book, and kind of work my way into it. Like I've read a Mark Cuban book before. um Eat That Frog is probably one of my favorite books. It was a book I got from Feud, and it really helped with procrastinating. Like just making sure you get shit done and stop trying to put it off and make an excuse to not get nothing done. It's like taking the time to map your day, map your week, and things like that, and like super production and getting production done. And then on top of that is podcasts and like audiobooks. So um, like when you make a shift to where it's just like, all right, I've heard this song 5 million times. Like, why am I still just listening to this song? Like, let me put on an audio book while I'm driving or something like that, so I can like absorb some information other than just hearing about the same Cadillac or whatever, hearing about the same tractor I've been riding or whatever. So it's just little things like that.
But it's like you said, it's like once you make that shift, like, because then you start to see, I think the initial thing, it goes back to that comfort thing. Like when you were a kid, like, damn, they're making me read these books in school. It's
Man,
like, man, I ain't
it.
reading this book, man. Like,
Hated it.
and some of it, like, dude, To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever, kind of like Romeo and Juliet. Like, okay, dude, like, we could have done better, right? But you know, but then when you get out in real life, it's like, and I can't do book. Like, I've got a bunch of books. You probably saw the books in there. I probably got 80 books, man. But I didn't read a book at all before 2020. I mean, I didn't read anything.
Facts.
But then I was like, once I started, and those books in there, I probably read 3 of them. I do Audible, but I still, if I start doing Audible and I realize it's a good book that I want, I'll go ahead and stop reading it or stop listening to it and get the hard copy, and then I'll either follow along and highlight it so it's reinforcing it,
Yeah.
or I'll just have it because I know I'm going to want to loan this to somebody. So I just loan out my books to people because I know it's hard to get self-motivated to read books if you don't understand the value what's on the other side of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know. Like, I can tell you, if you go to the gym, you can work out and you look great, and you can accept that because you can visually see it, but there's not a visual shift in reading books. So until people are around you a lot and then they start to see the changes, like the people that's been around me over the last 5 years have seen significant changes, and they're like, man, what are you doing, dude? I'm reading books. I'm listening to some podcasts. I'm being intentional about, I'm journaling. I'm doing these different things. So, but even then, I'm like, that's too much work, like, because they're not comfortable, so they don't want to do it. You know what I'm saying? So I'll take stuff all the time, and just like podcasts that I listen to, or some kind of content on YouTube that I know is like 30 to 40 minutes, not crazy long. And I'll just send it to people unsolicited. I'm like, hey, watch this. Like, and they're like, damn it. And then I'll check them like it's homework. Like, hey, did you watch that yet? But it's like, when you get that fire, bro, like, like you said, you get that fire in your belly. It's like, if you care about other people, which we do. I mean, we have conversations about this all the time. Like, we want to serve other people. We want to help everybody else level up. You understand, you can appreciate where you were at when you were sitting at a table and didn't feel like you belonged. And because you felt that way and now you feel like you do belong, if you see somebody else that looks like they might not feel like, or don't need to come to the table, you're like, man, come sit with us, bro. Like, you're gonna reach back and pull people up with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I love about you, man. It's like, and so to share those things and try to push those, like my brothers, I wear them out. Like, dude, hey, watch this. And a week later, hey, I ain't had time. Yeah, you had time. Like, how many games you watch? You've been watching basketball. You watched the whole, basketball March Madness. You could have had 40 minutes to watch Myron Golden. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Anyway, I just trying to keep them on, but it's hard too because like as an entrepreneur, and it's not just that part. There's the entrepreneur part, and then there's the personal growth. It kind of seems like they run parallel. Like what I mean? Like you're not going to really grow in business and be successful in business if you're not growing as a person.
Exactly.
And that's the part people miss.
Yep.
They think, oh, well, I want to have what he has. Well, you don't understand. Myron talks about this thing, and I'm going to share this with you as well. It's about a 44-minute deal, and you'll love Myron Golden, man. He's on point. But Myron talks about, and it's biblically based. He actually talks about this the scripture stuff that parallels it. But there's be, do, and have.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the three levels, and a lot of times we want to have things, so then we try to just go do the things that create the haves. But the problem is we didn't do the first step. We have to be who we're supposed to be first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to skip steps, it's never going to work.
No.
So forget about what you're going to have. Forget about the things you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just focus on one thing. Be who you're supposed to be. Do the personal development. Have the conversations. Like figure you out.
Mm-hmm.
Who does God want you to be? Who are you meant to be as a person? And then you can figure out what things you're supposed to be doing. And then from that, it'll provide the fruit of what you're supposed to have. Mm-hmm. But visually, we just look out and say, okay, well, I want to have that. So then you try to reverse engineer, well, he does this for a living, or he does that, or then you're trying to do those things. The problem is you ain't the person you were supposed to be. Mm-hmm. You skipped the first step. Entrepreneurship, I think, teaches you a hard lesson, because if you skip that step, eventually those paper cards that you pull up is gonna crumble.
Yep.
Right. So talk, if you can, talk a little bit about that and how those things run parallel for you, because I know your wife is a big part of that and pushing you.
Yeah.
But what kind of things have you seen as you was becoming who you're supposed to be as the person?
Yeah, man.
Those things start growing.
Again, it's about the switch. You gotta flip that switch. You can't keep doing the same things you were doing and like think something's gonna be different or whatever. So like one of the best things I'm proud of right now is, whenever my wife was pregnant, I stopped drinking when she was pregnant. So like I was like, all right, I'll do this with you or whatever, because I know you can't drink while you're pregnant. So as a chef, it's glorified, like going to the bars all the time, partying and just drugs, everything. Like it's heavy in the culinary industry. And I just made a conscious effort and was like, all right, man, like I do want to change the narrative. I don't want to be your stereotypical chef who's just like, always just hammered all the time, yelling at people all the time and doing stuff like that. And that's just never who I want to be. Mm-hmm. So I just made a conscious effort, and it's like, well, I know that, like I know that working a 12-hour shift and coming home and drinking a half bottle of bourbon, that's not going to be practical. Like that's not going to be sustainable.
Right.
And there's some people who operate like that, and that's fine, but like that's like one commitment I made, and one commitment I made to reduce my consumption. Mm-hmm. And then it can go into like, how long can you go? So like my brother Chris Sweet right now, like I love what he's doing, because he made a commitment like that, and I'm following him as well. He's over 100-something days sober and not drinking and things like that. So I see the people around me, the successful people around me, like I want to be like that too. So granted that I've already did it before, but I've seen how I go back and forth and how I feel when I actually make the conscious effort to start like looking out for me and taking care of me. Because again, like it's rough trying to wake up that next morning after, you've basically just consumed a bunch of trash, and then you have to go out and perform. So like I'm realizing, maturing as a business owner, like I have to be the best version of myself every time I step on the stage and every time I show up for an event. Like I can't just be at an event just taking shots and doing everything, doing crazy stuff with her. Like nah, I got to be out there hydrated, ready to go, rested, and motivated. So it's just a switch that I flip.
It's definitely consistency is the next step. Yeah. It's like there's a saying that they talk about this, and it's like amateurs do things until they get it right, and professionals do it until they can't get it wrong. And the difference of that step is the consistency. because you're going to keep doing it. Even when you do it right 5 days in a row, you're going to do it right a 6 day in a row. Like you don't, oh, I just did it for 5 days. So that's hitting it. Okay, I got to where I could do it right.
Right.
But then it's like the next step is when you can't do it wrong. And that's really where the consistency kind of kicks in, the commitment and dedication, and everything. So let's see if we can pull those pictures back. Let's start looking at some old school pics of Chef Mike back in the day.
This is big soon.
Did you go to one? Well, maybe we won't.
We had it up before.
I don't know what's going on with that thing.
I
All right,
think-
we'll take that back off.
I think that's a user error.
That's user error. Yeah, he's having a hard time, man. I think my man over there might have been doing shots before he got here. We got to check him.
Sure looks like it.
Had to do a check up on the board, man, old Brandon. But we had a couple of photos of your old school before
Yeah.
the dreads,
Yeah,
lean, mean, cooking machine.
there it is.
And we had some photos too of us. Uh-oh. Still doing it.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know. It could be internet problems because I closed the door, and I had to do that to keep the dog out. But anyway, we'll figure it out. But we were going to show some photos of us playing some football at the Revolt retreat,
Yeah.
and then we went like morons and jumped in the coldest river. Dude, and you just sat down there like a pro, man. Like,
Dude, because it's about the mindset stuff. So prior to the Revolt trip, I had already started making some changes, and I was doing like the cold showers every day, and just like really getting my mind right. So that's one of the things that I figured out that a lot of successful people are doing is like biohacking and things like that. So it's a different thing, like to be able to take that cold shower. And I tell the people close to me and around me, I was like, you should take a cold shower, like every now and then. If you don't do it every day, do it every now and then or whatever. And it's like so beneficial. So whenever we did go jump into the ice cold river, like initially it was probably about 8 seconds. It was like, oh, and then it just felt good. Like it was just therapeutic at that point. Like I felt good in there. So.
and I've got different things I can do a cold shower, but there's different cold showers, man. Like when you go up to like Baltimore and Pittsburgh area up there, like their cold shower, the water's different, bro.
Woohoo.
It's a different level. And then like the cold shower here,
Yeah.
and then getting a river in Tennessee, and the shower's one thing,
Right.
Like it's a percentage of your body
Yeah.
is being hit by water, but submerged in it, like that was just like, I'm not feeling this right now. Like my mindset, like, I mean, it's kind of like people say, can you eat hot foods? Like, I mean, I can, but I can eat dog crap too, just to prove a point.
Yeah.
That don't mean I like it. Like, so it wasn't enjoyable to be in that river. So I had to smoke a cigar at the same time to try to take my mind off of it. But yeah, man. So let's talk a little bit about, obviously the name of the podcast, Into the Storm. I know you've been through some stuff in your life, and we like to try to share with our viewers that may be going through different struggles, have been through some stuff, and still trying to deal and gain some perspective, and just try to help them, kind of, where they're at right now, maybe where they've been before, and trying to recover and share some of those stories. So what's something you've kind of been through? I can say this before we get into that part. I wanted to say that growing up the way I did in the areas that I did, I saw a lot of what the Black community was facing because I was right there with them. And in my community, I was a minority. So like I felt like how I was being treated differently within the Black community. So like the same way that, outside of the Black community, a Black man may feel, like he's being, pushed to the side or whatever. I felt that way. When you're trying out for a basketball team and you're the first white kid, you're only 3 white kids in the school, then yeah, you feel some kind of way. You're being treated some kind of way on a day to day. And my world, whereas your world is the world, you travel and do a lot of things. My world as a eighth, ninth, and 10th grader is, my bus ride to my school, my neighborhood that I live in, like that's my world, right?
Yeah.
So I certainly understand that, and I have a great respect for people that defy the odds and are the minority in their field or in their neighborhood or on their team or wherever it is, and you fight through that because I know what that feels like, right? Being a chef, and again, we touched on this earlier, but again, I will admit that I didn't foresee, this can be Chef Mike, and he's going to be this now the ambassador chef to South Carolina. Like that is crazy. Like, and we haven't even touched on that yet, but the levels that you've hit with this, and still to this day, whenever I say, "Have you know Chef Mike?" They're like, "No." It's like, man, it's like you'll never believe him, but go into his restaurant, and they'll go to the restaurant because, and there's like, it's this big black dude with dreads and everything. Like, he cooked that? Like, yeah, dude, like he's a freaking artist. Like, he's amazing. But I know there were some challenges along in that, and I know we haven't touched on that, and I would like for you to speak on that because I think it can motivate a lot of people.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things was whenever I started this culinary journey, I wanted to set myself up for success, and that's really the main reason why I went to culinary school, because I had the mindset that if I have a resume, if I have this on my resume, like a certification, like a culinary certification, I thought that would help me get a better job. So that was my game plan. I told myself, like, let's go to culinary school. I know how to cook, but I want to learn how to take it to the next level, and have the tools to take it to the next level. So just going out and applying for jobs at a young age or whatever, I was just happy to be like, hey, here's my resume, here's where I work, this is what I did, all that. And man, I learned very early on, unfortunately, in this industry, it's a lot of who you know and not what you know. And I saw that so early where I am, working in the kitchen with somebody, and I'm like, man, I know I'm 10 times better than this dude or whatever, and I know he getting paid way more than me. And I'm working more hours, I'm putting in more work, and I just see like all these different people around me getting, basically doing what I should be doing, whatever. Like I feel like I'm good enough, I could be doing that, I should be doing that, and if I'm not, then I acknowledge it and I work harder to get to that point. Um, but it kind of just came to the point where it's like, man, I just need to take my opportunities when I get them. So when I got the opportunity to go be a sous chef, I was like, all right, I'm gonna hop on that and I'm gonna take that. So going down to Abbeville, that was a little bit of a culture shock. The owner was German. He was the Michelin chef I work with. So he comes from Germany, and like beautiful restaurants back in Germany, Michelin star restaurants back home, and he told me, he was like, I'm gonna speak in his accent.
Yeah.
He was like, Mike, uh, the people here, they tell me don't hire you. And I was like, why? He was like, they say don't hire the black, don't hire the black person. And I was like, why? He was like, say basically like you're lazy, you won't come to work, you'll steal, and all kind of stuff or whatever. He's like, but I never seen like you, like young, passionate, you want to do this and do that or whatever. Never seen that before. So that was one of my early experiences. And
Well, let me ask you this before you go too far past that point. How did that discourage you? Did it fire you up? Was you just kind of already used to that being part of that arena? Like, how did that affect you, man?
if I let it affect me negatively, then I would stay at that point. Like I would just be like, oh, I'm happy that I got this opportunity, instead of like kicking down doors and taking names and stuff like that or whatever. Um, it was kind of like, man, take what you can get, because it's hard out here or whatever. Like take what you can get, and don't be the stereotype, don't be what they expect you to be.
Yeah.
So like, And in the black community, we say a lot. We say this a lot. Like, man, you got to work 10 times harder. Like, you just got to work 10 times harder. You can't make the same mistakes, and things like that. Versus your counterpart or somebody else who doesn't look like you or whatever. Like, we see that all the time. So, I kind of embraced it at that moment or whatever. Like, it felt good to, I guess, be honored that, you put that much trust in me and you're so impressed by me just by being young and black. Like, that was cool. And fast forward, that helps out that little kid who might be, thinking that they can do something, but they haven't seen somebody that looks like them do it. Like, that means so much to see somebody who looks like you doing it and doing it. Like, so that was one of my first experiences. And then working in certain settings and basically just like being nothing unless you had that coat on, because like, like you walk in a room or something like that and people like, who are you, like what you doing here? I'm like, your chef. And then their tone changes and things change like that or whatever. But um man, the craziest things I've seen and I've had to deal with is just, it's like the older crowd. um and, and I will say it definitely goes both ways. Is dealing with the older crowd that I experienced. And one of my last jobs um was, somebody basically, like, I had one guy come up to me. He was like, hey, how you doing, boy? And I was like, oh. Like, that's what we're doing. I was like, my name's Michael or whatever. He completely ignored it and proceeded to tell me what he wants or whatever like that. So um there's two ways that you can take that. Like, either you can like bitch about it and whine and complain or whatever, or I'm gonna go to HR, I feel offended or whatever. Like, nah, like, this is my name. My name's Michael. I'm your chef. Like, respect me. Like, respect the work that I'm putting in. And if you can't, then we got a bigger problem. And what I ran into the most was like, man, crazy board members, dude. Like it's tough. It's tough. Like, I get it. Like, you don't want this black man telling you what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be doing it, because it's rare. You haven't seen that before. You haven't seen somebody come in with the skill set caliber and basically, breaking barriers and doing things that you didn't expect him to do. Like, you didn't expect me to, know how to handle percentages and food costs and things like that. You didn't expect me to put out this 5-star quality meal. I know what you expect. You expected fried chicken and mac and cheese and collard greens. I know that's what you expected. But, I'm searing scallops, making risottos and beurre blancs over here. So um, now it's different. And you're trying to figure out, like, how is this guy making Asian food? How's this guy making authentic German food, authentic Spanish food, or whatever?
Well, we
And
know he's making Cajun food because of his wife.
that's right. That's right. Like, so, it's mind blowing. And like,
Yeah.
you just don't understand it. But man, what really used to suck was, um, again, it's just putting all that work in, and seeing somebody who's underqualified, like way less qualified than you, get a position that you're trying to go for. And it's just like, bro, like, I can outcook you, and I know I'm better suited for this job than you, but because your daddy knows the owner or knows this person or gave you that connection, that's why you're my boss, or that's why you're in that position or whatever. And one of the funnier things I experienced was when I was in the transition process of looking for another job before we started really taking on our own thing. I reached out to an estate in Asheville, and they had job openings. And I applied for them because like it seems prestigious. Like, oh man, it'd be cool to work there at this beautiful place and all that stuff. And so I put an application in. They had a posting, and they send me back like, sorry, unfortunately, we're not hiring for that position right now. But here is a housekeeping position that's open. Here is a landscaping position that's open, or whatever. And I'm just like, what? And somebody else that I know applied for that same position and totally different email. And I'm just like, okay, all right. So that's how we get now. So, and I've seen it so much. Like, again, in my process of leaving my last job, the jobs that I applied for. But now, dude, I am so grateful for the phone calls that I didn't get and the emails that I didn't get about, congratulations, you got this job or whatever, because I still just would have been doing the same thing versus, kicking the door down and doing what we're doing now. And it's like I've just embraced it, and that's just what we're doing. And my wife is way more vocal about it than I am. She's like, "You want me to turn up on him?" Like, I turn up on him. Like, nah, don't do it, whatever. She's like, "That's not right." Like she'll see it and she'll point out. She's like, "That's not right. You know they're not doing something right about that or whatever."
Well, I think how far off do you think compare? I mean, and I know you're in your mid 30s.
Just turned 33.
I guess you can't really give perspective to this, but like I wonder how far because we've come so far in a lot of areas. You know what I mean? Like black quarterbacks are like
Exactly.
prevalent. Like
Yeah.
it's not even a big deal.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like my favorite quarterback for a while has been Russell Wilson. The fact that he came to the Steelers is awesome.
Mhm.
Like I'm worried he's too old, but it is what it is. But it's not but in that specific you know profession,
Mhm.
um, I'm just wondering how more widely accepted it is now. Do you
Just
feel like it's shifting
Yeah.
in the right direction?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And your position now. Tell me about this ambassador, South Carolina. I mean, that is crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of the shift. So like just to touch back base on that is there's dogs in kitchens, man. Like there's guys who look just like me who can, outcook everybody that's around them and things like that. We just didn't have the same opportunities. But again, just to hone back on it, like not whining about not having the opportunity because like we need to make our own opportunities. So
Right.
that's just why we just started making our own opportunities versus waiting for somebody to be like, oh, okay, here you go, here's your chance or whatever. Like, nah, like I, we know what we're good at, we know what we can do or whatever. And it's about building a brotherhood. Now I've started building a brotherhood of black chefs, and we can communicate and we can have those conversations like, hey, what you think about this? What do you think about that or whatever? And like let's talk about what we got going on and things like that and like your experiences and how that's helped you get to this point or whatever. It's actually kind of crazy the amount of people who reach out to me and want to know like, hey, how do you do this? How you do that? I was like, I'm still doing it. I didn't know I was like to a point where people were like inquiring on like my successes. So I'm sorry, what was the question you asked before that?
Well, just how far along you think we are, how close we are to it being like there's not black chefs and white chefs. There's
Yeah,
just like I
yeah.
don't again like quarterback. When you think about it, 10 years ago it was like a black quarterback. Now it's just
Right.
you're just a quarterback.
Well, I think the one thing that won't change will be the criticism and the conversation because the conversation is gonna keep happening, or whatever. I'm just more on the spectrum of getting it done or whatever. So it's right there. I'm seeing it now. Like I was doing festivals and things like that, and it would be discouraging to see that I'm like only one of two black chefs in the room or something like that or whatever. So now we're on the phone, we're sending out emails, and now we're doing events. And I was like, this is my brother. Like this is what he do. Like he can do this, he can do that or whatever. And so like now you start building that circle of other guys. Like we just got to work together.
Right.
And that's been such a issue in the black community for a long time is not working together and wanting to see each other be successful because we end up being our own worst enemy sometimes. And that's what a lot of people, but especially in our culture, we just got to work together and be together. So
I've talked to a few friends. I got a lot of like out of my top 10 friends, probably 8 of them are black guys. Like, what I mean? Like, just it is what it is. But
Yeah.
like, I've had this conversation a few times. It's like that crab bucket mentality, man. Like, what I mean? One's trying to crawl out, and the other one's pulling them down. It's like um, sometimes you can't get out of your own way, man. So, man, I'm just super excited to see where you take this. I know you just opened another restaurant. So tell me about your different restaurants you have.
So first of all, our original restaurant is White Wine and Butter. That's our Cajun Trattoria. That one was inspired by me traveling down to New Orleans and trying all the food in New Orleans. My wife gave me all her family, her great 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 grandmother's recipes, and I turned them into the 21st century and made them modern. And that was our baby. That was our very first restaurant. So that one we decided to relocate it and redo it the right way because we were a little bit rushed into getting that one launched and doing what we need to do, and it was early on in our career, so we made a business decision. It was just like, man, the people love the food, they love what we're doing, but they want full service. They want a bar, they want a server, and they want more options, and they like steaks and stuff like that. So we made a business decision for not only ourselves but for our backyard where we have our business set up, and it was like, man, we don't want to put our name on something that's not like the
Right.
right that's
Right.
not right. So give me a chance. Let's make it right. So pausing that restaurant and researching and trying to find a new location, which we've been doing so hard, is finding a new location for that. And in the midst of that, we started playing around with burgers because we ran a burger special, and people like went crazy over the burger special. And then we just like, ding, maybe we should open a burger restaurant. So fell in love with the concept of doing a burger restaurant, and being humble enough to be like, I'm a chef and I'm gonna have a burger restaurant. Because like really, when you think about it, the most successful chefs, they kind of have a burger restaurant. When you're thinking about like TV, like Guy has a burger restaurant, Gordon has a burger restaurant, things like that. And um, being immature, you won't realize those things. But at
Right.
maturing as a businessman and a chef, it's just like people want bread, they want beef, they want cheese and potatoes. Like give them what they want. So burger restaurant has been very successful in Greer, doing a great job back there.
That burger was amazing, bro.
Thank you.
Man, that thing was good.
Thank you. And like I'm still able to put my chef touches on it with
Definitely.
the duck fat caramelized onions because I mean I haven't really checked much, but I'm pretty sure nobody else in the area is putting duck fat caramelized onions on their burgers. And we took the time to develop a secret sauce that is not Thousand Island or Russian sauce or whatever, like the other guys do. So um
I was at a restaurant the other day, and they called it was a new restaurant,
uh,
and they called it Million Island dressing. I was like,
oh,
well, what is Million Island dressing? And I got it. It was Thousand
that
Island.
was
They
still
just made
Thousand
it.
Island. That's tough. That's tough. But also Hendrix Chicken and Waffles. That's our new baby.
That's one I've not been to.
Yeah. So Hendrix, that's the one we flipped the concept and location for the original white wine and butter, and we turned that to Hendrix Chicken and Waffles. So.
Is that in Greer? Where's that?
Yeah, in Greer, the same location as the original white wine and butter.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Hendrix Chicken and Waffles, it's our take on, chicken. So like fried chicken. And the funny story about that is when I opened White Wine and Butter, I told myself like I'm not putting chicken on the menu. Man, that lasted for about 2.5, maybe 3 months. Just, trying to be that stubborn chef, like I'm a good chef. This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna come to my restaurant and you're gonna eat duck instead of chicken because I want you to try something different. You can go to every other restaurant and eat chicken, but I want you to try this and I want you to try that or whatever.
Do you have a version of the chicken that you make at the revolt retreats?
Oh my goodness.
Is there anywhere I can
Man, I
purchase that?
really be freestyling when I be out there.
I knew it. I knew it.
I really be freestyling. That's just like me. If I get a budget and I run with it, like, all right, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna grab that, throw it in there. It's not standardized, so you would probably do a better job of telling me what all I put on the chicken, and I could bring it back. So
It was so good. We've had this conversation 15 times. Just the lemonade that you. It's like a watermelon.
I put it on the menu after we had a conversation. I put it on the menu.
It's
So
so good.
it's at Hendrix.
Which one? It's at Hendrix.
It's at Hendrix.
I'm going there
Yeah,
today.
yep. So
I'm going there. I promise you. I'm gonna send you a picture. I'm going there today.
yeah, man. So but that just puts it in perspective, like full circle moment. Like, I tried to tell people that you're not gonna eat chicken at my restaurant because I didn't want to be stereotypical, and again to continue to break that barrier where when you see me, I don't want you to just think soul food, southern food. Like I want you to see me as a chef for who I am. I'm American chef. That's literally on my Facebook page. Like when it doesn't say black chef or whatever,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. It says American chef. I am an American chef.
You said something about Walter White. What was it? Walter
Yeah, I'm the culinary Walter
The
White,
culinary
man.
Walter
Like,
White, I love
I'm a
it.
chemist. I'm a chemist in there.
Man,
Like,
yes.
I love food science too. So like I'm always like trying to like push the boundary, and figure out where I can push the boundary on certain stuff. Because like I know in the restaurants, it's it's geared to a certain demographic, so like we have to do what's going to be best suited for our area. But man, you book a private dinner, like we go crazy. Like we have fun on private dinners. Like you'll be eating flavor profiles that you would have never imagined you'd be having. And I'm just putting stuff together where it's just like I don't know, I wanted to try it. And that's like how some of the best things are created. Like when you put two weird things together and you taste it and it's like, oh wow, that's kind of good. So I love umami. Umami is like one of my favorite things. It's like right there on the tip of your tongue with all those different flavors, just like crazy, like crazy, and incorporating senses and stuff. Like my heart's beating fast now because I'm
Right.
getting excited thinking about food. Um, but yeah, Hendrix chicken and waffles, fried chicken tenders. We're getting ready to drop some wings here soon, so we just got our base menu out. We just want to get started, get things going, see how everything's working, and we're already like, all right, so we can execute this. Let's incorporate the wings, and then we'll start adding sauces too, so you can toss your wings and possibly your tenders too. But the waffles, very very simple waffle, and it comes from my theory about success leaves clues. And I think about Waffle House, like everybody always talking about Waffle House, but Waffle House is consistent like 90% of the time you go there. That's like, even if it takes you an hour and a half to get your food, it's pretty much going to be consistent. So they're doing something right there. So I've always fell in love with the places that have like mad consistency. So
I'll tell you something about Waffle House, and this is not that the food is great.
right.
It's not about that. I love going to Waffle House and sitting at the bar
Yeah.
where I can watch those guys cook.
It's art, man.
It is literally like watching a it's like watching a sport, like watching Tiger Woods on a golf course, or even something like a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning negotiate the pocket, like all the things that's going on, and that they see the safety, they see the linemen,
Yeah.
they see they're
Yeah.
coordinating their line, they're calling the line, they're adjusting the receivers, they're adjusting their splits. It's like, dude, how do you see all that? Man, to watch somebody at a freaking Waffle House with 10 tickets and they are just popping these things off. Like, as this comes off, that's ready, the bread hits, and like, boom, it's ready. Like, it's just the timing.
Poetry in motion.
God, it's beautiful.
I love
Like
it,
that.
man.
And that's what I can't hate about, that I hate about high level restaurants like what
Yeah.
you have, is like you can't get to where you can see that art happening.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like all protective, and y'all are probably back there like on TV yelling at everybody, but so we can't see all that. But no, I'm just joking. But like literally, like that's the only reason I like going to Waffle House, is just for that, to see that art.
Well, you talked about like influence and stuff earlier. Like I got a lot of influence from a Waffle House. Like when I first started designing kitchens and trying to figure out a layout for my kitchen and things like that when I took over as executive, I would go to a Waffle House and just sit at the bar and watch them cook and like watch the flow. Cause like I'm like, all right, well, this is $1 million company, multi-million-dollar company, so they're doing something right. And I'm looking at how they have their kitchen set up. So I'm looking at like, okay, the grill's right here, the sink's right there, cooler's right there. Well, that all makes sense. So this person who's working predominantly in this space right here, they're not running all the way, running all around the kitchen to get stuff and get it done. So
They got the eggs right there in the cooler thing
yeah,
right there. I'm
and
just
like,
yeah.
and I started doing stuff like that in my setups, incorporating their setups, and then I started trying to recruit chefs from Waffle House. Man, they're taken very well care of, so it's hard to get one. So
Man, and you can see the like in 2020, like when all that stuff happened, and you were having like you had to go just pick up your food, you couldn't go sit down,
Yeah.
and so like people weren't coming to work. Like you could just see a drastic drop off, like of some of the talent of some of those guys wasn't there, and you could
Yeah.
tell they didn't know what the hell they was doing.
Yeah.
But like to get as good as some of those people are, it's like, man, that is just art, man.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm always paying attention to anybody that's at a high level in the industry. I just have a great appreciation for how hard that's got to be,
Love
man,
that,
to
man.
get to that point.
I love that.
So, um, so I know I kind of took us into, the a storm discussion
Yeah.
about, race and things that you faced in that arena. But is there anything else that you can think of that you feel like you've grown through some tough times?
Yeah, I made a Facebook post not too long ago, which was kind of rare of me. I need to do better. I need to post more, all those things. But just being more open about my life and where I came from and things like that. I made this post. I've made a couple posts about my dad. So like my dad, he was incarcerated a good bit of my life growing up. So single parent or whatever. Like my mom, my aunts, my grandparents, and all those, my uncles and all that, they stepped in and helped out a good bit whenever he was incarcerated. So um, but whenever my dad was around and not in jail, like it was great. Like we had a great time all the time or whatever. And I'm so grateful for all the things I learned from him. I learned a lot of what not to do. But man, like the roughest time I went through was in high school, about uh, 10th or 11th grade. And I go to school, get to the lunch table, and everybody's looking at the newspaper or whatever. And like I sit at the same table like some of my teammates from football or whatever, same place I normally sit. And one guy looks at me and he looks and he's like Mike Sibert. He said, "Well, you burned somebody's house down last night." I was like, "What you talking about?" So I look and it's my dad on the front page of the newspaper, um, allegedly burnt down the house in my hometown or whatever. So we have the same name. So it's my name on the front page of the paper. It's my dad on the front page of the paper. All my classmates and my teammates are looking at it. They're laughing and all kind of stuff like that. And like, man, that was rough. Like I've always considered that to be like one of the worst days of my life is dealing with that. So I remember sitting at the table, going to class, and just like kind of like having my head down on the table all day. And my coach calls me on the intercom. Is like, can you come to Coach Clowney's office or whatever? So my coach calls me to the office. Yeah, let's talk about it. Whatever. What's going on? And I was just like, and I don't even know. Like, I didn't even know nothing about this. I probably wouldn't even came to school if I knew that. So that was me first hearing about it, and it was super embarrassing to my family. Like my aunt had to deal with the same thing. She went to work, and people were asking her questions about it, what's going on, and I just don't know. So, um, but to fast forward from that moment to grow from that situation where that was like ultra embarrassing and upsetting, and then for it to come full circle when I've been featured on the front page of the Greenville News, the Greer Citizen, and I think like an Anderson paper or something like that as well, magazines, and to be on national television. Like it feels good to know that the full circle moment was the one of the last articles of me being on the front page of the Greenville News. I was able to show that to my son. So show it to my boys, and I took a picture of Blue holding the newspaper with his daddy on the front of it, and I'm reading it to him, and I was just like, this comes back full circle because one of the things I promised my dad is like I wanted to clear our name. Um, and like I've really pushed hard to get an article on the front page of the newspaper back at home, the Index Journal. So I wrote that post. I was talking about him in that post, and recently they've reached out. I don't know if it'll be a front page article because I'm kind of over it now. Like I said my piece about it, but it basically just spoke on like, man, like y'all put him on the front page of the newspaper for what he was allegedly did or whatever. And more often than not, black men in my hometown are on the front page for something not good. And I was like, man, why don't y'all put something on the front page about a black man doing something positive from his hometown or whatever? And the last time they tried to interview me, I told them that, and then it was just crickets. Like I heard nothing else from them or whatever. So I was like, I'll do the article, I do the interview, but unless it's gonna be on the front page, I don't want to do it. I don't care if that's etiquette or not, but I just don't want to do it. Like it's a mission. Like I'm on a mission to do something, and so I washed my hands with it. But recently they came up and they did shoot at Hendrix Chicken and Waffles or whatever. I didn't even bring it up after that. I was just like, whatever. You want to write an article? It's fine. You put it on the front page. Probably not, but whatever. I'm over it. So I've had that full circle moment where now, my dad was on the front page of the newspaper for something not good, and so now my kids get to see their dad on the front page of the newspaper for something good. So, and
Where's
and I
where's your
talked to him
dad?
about in Greenwood.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, in Greenwood. I'm incredibly proud of him of how far he's came and all the things he's had to do to get to the place where he is now, or whatever. I'm super proud of him, of overcoming that. That's why I've always been big on rehabilitation, because of the prison system and things like that. Like, it's just, we'll send somebody, put somebody on punishment or send somebody to jail, but there's no rehab to fix what they are going to jail for or whatever.
Right.
There's no system, there's no plan in place to like help them out. Like, you know, whatever the percentages is that you get out of jail, you're pretty much going right back, because you don't have the opportunities to find a good job. Somebody's going to take the chance with you, having that structure in place to help you be a better person, and that should be in the prison system. That shouldn't have to rely on everybody outside of the prison or whatever. But that's another story.
Well, I
Like,
think there's so many different ways to deal with issues, and I don't think we think outside of the box enough.
not enough.
I read a book, and I can't remember the name of it now, but I'd watched a podcast, and this guy came on. I think it was Joe Rogan. That was the first podcast I started watching, was Joe, and but the guy came on there, and he was like an English guy, and he's talking about the opioid epidemic. And this is completely unrelated to your father. I don't know what his challenges were, but I'm just going to talk about this because I'm familiar with this. And I watched it because I've got some family members that have dealt with that struggle with opioids, and sometimes it was recreationally they got into it. Sometimes it was just they were on pain meds that were prescribed to them as innocently as you or me. Hey, you take these, get through, you got a bad back, whatever. And then that just turns into something you don't realize what it is until it's too late. You're already in it. But regardless, there's still always that challenge of getting off of it. And it's undoubtedly, it is extremely difficult. Like it's just it gets into your bones, man. Like it's extremely hard. So I'm trying to absorb everything I can to try to help, some of my family members, because I was like, I gotta understand this, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I could try to help. And listen to this guy talk about this book, and there's other countries that had worse ratios of deaths, where it was affecting their country worse than it is ours.
Wow.
And they went in and said, okay, well, this is $1 billion problem. I'm just throwing out a number. This is $1 billion problem. When you figure out the police we have to pay to police this stuff, the court systems, to incarcerate them, all the different things that you're doing to uphold this, right? Or to deal with this issue. So I said, okay, well, let's do this. Let's take these, and you got the methadone clinics as a train wreck, because that's just organized. You know what I mean? It's just an organized way to still deal drugs through them. So I've got my opinions on that as well. And there's never a game plan of how to taper you off of it.
Yeah.
Like I would ask my, it was my oldest son battled that for a long time. He's been clean now for a few years, but he battled that for a decade, man. And me and my ex-wife, we were paying for him to go to the clinic, and it was like $10 a day. And it's like, okay, well, what's the game plan? You gonna do this till you're 80? Like, how does this play out? It's like, find out, can they just reduce your desk? Like, do we taper you off? Like, what happens? And there's like, they never want to have that conversation. It's like they would get pissed at you for bringing it up. Like, no, like, this is what you're doing. We're gonna get you $10 every day for the rest of your life, I guess. I don't know what plan was. Anyway, this book talks about it. And what they did, dude, this is crazy that this happened. They legalized it. And instead of having methadone clinics, they full-blown gave you heroin. So you just go in the morning, go down there and get your free heroin. You tell them how much you want. They shoot you up, and they send you out. But here's what they do. They took that budget that they knew they were spending all this money anyway. They went to McDonald's and all these entry-level jobs and say, look, we're going to system. These people don't have a life. They can't get going. They've got criminal records. They got all these things. So they fall back into what they were in. It says, if you pay them $10 an hour, we're going to pay $5 an hour for you we're going to pay you to let these people work. So they took that budget and put it in and paid the companies to hire them. So they made the same amount of money as somebody else. The government was paying half and the company was paying half. It was a great deal for them. Like, we cut our labor costs in half. And what they found was there's timestamps. I'm not going to remember it, so I'm not going to even act like I will. But from what I remember, it was like within 3 or 4 months they were taking less heroin. 6 months later, they were 9 months in, like they were 90% of them were completely off of it.
Wow.
Like it was crazy that they didn't have a connection, they didn't have a purpose, they didn't have a
Yep.
why.
Yep.
And this restructure gave them that purpose, and it was completely outside of the box. Now I've seen on social where some people have mentioned this because of that book and because of the success of it in other countries, and they're like, dude, they want to legalize heroin, like that's crazy, and the government's going to give people heroin. But people didn't read the book, they don't understand the mindset of it. But it literally has to take something that extreme
Yeah.
to correct some of these issues. We try to think with like just rational within the system that we already have. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like it's the definition of insanity. Like keep doing the same thing, expect a different result. But I just thought that book was just like mind blowing, and it just gave me a different perspective on dealing with any of these issues. Like you're talking about rehab from people that get out of prison for various reasons, right? So, but it's going to take some kind of a major shift in the system that's going to feed this and redirect it. And it's going to be something that we can't agree on anything. Like the government, like the country, like we're
Right.
just so divided. It's a train wreck. So I don't know how we get there, but I want to share that story because I thought it was so crazy. Did something that extreme, like, oh, we're just going to make it legal and just give you free heroin. But then it worked. Like, imagine that. So, in closing, man, we like to talk about, give a motto or a quote or something that you kind of live by. You may share often with your circle that just kind of give somebody some lead off advice from Chef Mike.
You know, I think first off, man, jump off the porch. Just do it, and it's not gonna be perfect. It won't be perfect at all. Um, but leave room for failure. Just fail. Like that's how you'll learn and grow. Like there's wins and losses, or there's wins and learning. So, you know, you need to learn from a loss, and then you can move forward. And then other than that, it's just really what I've been on lately is just drinking water and minding my businesses. So that's my thing, man. Not trying to get too caught up in stuff that I can't control, outside factors that I can't control. It's really just honing in on us and what we're doing, not listening to outside noise, and not allowing people to take my happiness away, and take all the joy and success that we're experiencing because of all the work that we put in, and not being embarrassed of my garden. So a wise man told me not to be embarrassed of my garden, of all the you know starting to finally see some fruits of our labor, because we've been putting in work for a long time, and this just might be what you're seeing on the front face, but you haven't seen a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So entrepreneurship is blood, sweat, tears, tireless nights, long hours, um, but it's just where we are. Like I'm just building this brand and a beautiful work culture.
Man, that's awesome. I saw a thing, and if I find it, I'm gonna share it with you. Um, but it was Myron Golden talking. He was on someone else's podcast, but he talked about the tree, and just that what people don't understand is that everything that you see above ground, there's just as much underground.
Hmm.
And before it can even come out of ground, it's got to go further down into the darkness and further away from the sun to gather the nutrients and to develop the root system before it can even pop up.
Yeah.
So like you always have to go down first.
Hmm.
And again, people just seeing what's above ground. And so
When I met John Maxwell at a feud event or whatever, when I talked to him, he looked at me, he was like, "This is you. You did this food or whatever." And I was like, "Yes, sir." He was like, "You're gonna be great. You're gonna go places." And one of the things I took from as I was eavesdropping on the seminar or whatever, I was like, "Well, I'm here. I'm gonna listen." So he's like, a lot of people want to do what you do, but don't want to do what you did to do what you're doing or whatever. So that's like one of the main things I took from him, because it's a lot of front facing. You see this, you see that or whatever, but you don't know what we had to do to get there. So
he's he said I've heard him say that on several podcasts. he's got his own podcast. I've heard him say it a few times, and it really it sticks to you.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes you get down there and you're having to dig in the dirt. You're having to get your roots down in there, and you're not seeing the sunlight yet, man.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, dude, when is this? But that's when it's a great time to have that blessing, like with your wife. That you know, I'm sure she keeps you dialed in and looking where you're supposed to look.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we hold each other accountable.
that's awesome, man. Mike, I really appreciate it, brother. Man, I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sorry we had a few technical issues. We're going to fire Brandon.
That's all good.
But anyway, guys, appreciate y'all tuning in with us. And again, I always say this, always be yourself. Unless you can be a bison. If you can be a bison, then always be a bison. Until next time. Later.
Oh,